All right, it's recording. All right, so let's start off with the Jim Sharpe case. So basically, let me pull up my summary here. So I put, since graduating from Harvard Business School 10 years ago, Jim Sharpe has held corporate management jobs. He has gained valuable division president level experience and feels he is ready to run a low-tech manufacturing company. He researched many different avenues to find businesses for sale and some criteria for the size and type of business he would want to purchase. Jim has found an aluminum extruding company that he has reached an agreement with the owner to purchase. Jim secured financing through a bank and the seller, and the business appears to be sound enough to support the debt. Jim sees opportunities for operational efficiencies as well as expansion to make the business more profitable. The customer base is good and diverse, providing some protection against sector downturns. There are some big questions to be answered as he begins his new life as a business owner. The first is the current workforce, which per request of the seller he was unable to communicate with, which is unionized and possibly not happy. Also, the state of the building and equipment shows a lot of wear and tear, but it is all his now. The evaluation that needs to be done centers around the workforce issues, how to best achieve operational efficiencies, and the best ways to and areas to expand into either product or geographic, and the decision is to be made as far as what his action plan is. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
I just want to say that I think Jim's doing this his way. I don't know if it's the right way or not, but it sounds like he's in charge. He's doing it based on his circumstances. He created, his model company or his ideal company that he was looking for. And I just kind of think that he found this through a pretty thorough search based on a bunch of criteria. So I think it's right for him. It would be one thing to say, oh, he heard from a friend of a friend and, this possible great business venture idea and, he should jump in both feet. That might have me a little hesitant. But the fact that he searched and kind of found an industry, not necessarily an industry, but a company, manufacturing company that he's had experience with managing similar types of companies before, I think he's got a lot going for him right now.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I almost can't get over the whole, not talking to employees, or at least, the manager, the VP of operations. To me, that's just like a huge red flag. Is the seller trying to hide something, or?
That's interesting. I didn't think about it like that. I thought he was trying to protect his employees from kind of like getting worried. He didn't want people to know that he was going to sell the company or anything like that. But that brings up a good point. I didn't think about that. And he also said not to talk to his clients, right? So
Right.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
And obviously, there's some operational issues if every 3 years the employees have gone on strike. But I also see that as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's a brand new building, new equipment, and everything's running smoothly, you wouldn't have a lot of upside. It's kind of like, if you go in and if you're looking for a house, if you want a lot of upside and you're pretty good at fixing things, then a fixer-upper gives you a lot of potential. You can, go in there and spend some money and some time and and get a pretty good return on it. Whereas if you go in and buy something at pretty much market value, your upside is really only going to be as much as real estate appreciates in general. So everybody's real talkative tonight. Okay, so some of the questions are, how has Jim Sharpe purchased this venture?
I kind of spoiled that one a little bit. Just sorry, Victor, to cut you off too, man. He knew he wanted something that would play off of his experience in managing production. So with that, you know, he I think he had a radius of, I don't know if it was 60 miles or so from his house, and certain ranges of, I don't know if it was income or profit, something. He kind of had a general idea on kind of what he wanted, and kind of like what Norman said, it's kind of a fixer-upper company, somebody who's willing to sell. Hopefully he could talk him down into a better deal, that there would be more upside, and then just let his personality and his managerial experience shine through, and hopefully turn the company around, and you know, start implementing a lot of things that he's learned over the years and start making a lot more money. First pay it off and then start making a lot of money.
Okay. But then, so then the structure was the leveraged purchase using the business assets, equipment, inventory, and accounts receivable as collateral. How does the way that the structure of the purchase, how do you guys see that as being a positive or a negative versus if you'd have been able to go in and do a cash purchase?
One of, I don't know, I'm pretty conservative in my own purchasing and things like that, and you know, he said, I think there was a phrase in the case that said, I've even got like my house on the line as collateral. Like he's betting the whole farm basically on this business venture, and a lot of, and I wish I had the numbers exactly, but he got a bank loan for a certain amount, and he has his own personal money. I had written down, there's a seller note, a 6-year non-compete contract, and then bank debt. So there's a lot of debt, and that's kind of scares me a little bit, just because if it fails, then you know, he's going to be liable for a lot of that. And I think the seller had kind of, he made a lot of stipulations, I guess, like, you know, make sure I get paid first, and written in the sale agreement that, like, pretty much whatever happens from this point forward, the seller's going to get his money. And, you know, maybe the seller's trying to tell him something, and the seller knows that it's a failing company. I don't know.
Yeah, that whole part about getting 99% back, if he defaulted, that's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
That was my thinking, was there's a lot of stress involved in the structure of the deal.
Yeah, a lot of debt, a lot of stress.
The whole thing was kind of, I don't know, it was almost kind of fishy, you know. Now that you said, like, you know, he wasn't allowed to talk to the employees or the clientele, and now he's like putting up all this safety stuff to, you know, regain the company in case anything happens, as if it almost seems like something is, you know, fishy's going on that we don't really know about. But I thought that it was a little excessive what the guy was doing. I did think that, it's safe to do that or whatever, but at the same time, it just seemed a little excessive. And that was kind of a red flag to me, honestly. But it seems like the main guy, I can't remember his name, but he has really good intentions with what he's doing, and he's not worried about that. So he's not really. I mean, it looks like he's trying to stick this out through the long term. So it doesn't really like get to him too much, because I don't think he feels like he's gonna mess anything up and end up losing it.
Did you guys catch the part about one of the competitors, the EG&G Alutech in Fall River? That one of the things he mentioned as a positive was that that company was closing, and it didn't really give any more details for that, but that they had seen an uptick in requests for quotes because of that company closing. And I was kind of worried about that. Why is that company closing? So anyway, just another little side note that I caught that.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be an opportunity, to pick up some assets, or maybe have a second location, or obviously it kind of mentioned it, saying that they were going to pick up some business from that. But yeah, I'd be a little worried that.
Hopefully, it's not an indication of the industry, right?
Right.
Closing their doors.
I mean, maybe it's because that other company is heavily into the construction industry, which I guess fluctuates pretty bad. So who knows? But that was another one of the questions that I kind of threw up there, was what's going on with a nearby competitor. So
I don't remember where I read, but said that when he go to this company have a bad is bad in the marketing, and is bad in when try to supply to the customers, and he don't have idea if some people have a contract or with the unions, and I don't know. It's a lot of question for me.
yeah, and it sounds like the seller was really not very focused on that business. He was more focused on some software development that he wanted to get into, and so it kind of sounded like, and I've seen this in business, where especially family businesses or people that kind of inherit businesses, it provides cash for them. It provides a place for them to expense a lot of stuff like the vehicles, and it was providing his dad with income, and if it's providing you income, it didn't sound like the guy really wanted to develop the business. He was just kind of riding it, which, like, again, that goes to where, if when Jim comes in, he can really put his management skills to use, his marketing, and if this business is doing this well without very good management, imagine how well it'll do with some good management. So, and those are positive things.
Yeah, I kind of equate running a business to like having a bucket full of water with a bunch of holes, in the bottom, and you gotta plug those holes or stop those expenses. And it sounds like some of the biggest expenses are the personal funding to the father and to himself, and if we stop those leaks, we catch more in the bucket. If you reinvest more and renovate some of the equipment, or maybe upgrade the facility. And I think, and I know we're kind of skipping around, but I think some of his next his strategy should be to spend less on, try to cut expenses as much as he can. And a lot of that's going to come because the business doesn't have to support the dad and the owner.
All right, so let's all go around and say what you would do. What should Jim Sharpe do on his first day as owner? What would you do, Victor?
Oh, okay. I was typing it. I decided that getting to know the employees was a little bit better out of the options that were given. I feel like he needs to build up some type of relationship with the people he's working with and figure out if he can figure and find any type of issues or anything that might be going on. Getting to know the machine is whatever, but I think that he needs to get to know where he's working a little bit better. And with the employees, I think that'd be the best way to do it.
What do you see as, yeah, I agree with you on that first step is do a lot of listening. I would sit down with the management, the existing management that's staying, maybe, I don't know, what do you guys think? Would you do it as a group first, or would you sit down with each of them individually?
Individually.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I think that would take too long. I think you need to have some kind of a powwow pep talk as a group and say, all right, here's our vision, here's what we need to do in the future, like kind of open the door a little bit and say, hey, I'm approachable for suggestions, for guidance, whatever you got, whatever insights you have of the company and you want to share with me, and kind of act like a sponge, and listen. But I think the whole group that first day needs to hear from Jim, and then maybe the one-on-one interviews could follow that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of questions would you ask, or which manager would you focus on first, or which would be the highest priority? I'm going to scroll down to the employee list here.
Oh, I didn't even see that one.
Okay, so he's got a vice president, an operations manager, a controller, personnel and purchasing manager, field salesman, and production manager. What's one of the things that you saw from an operational efficiency standpoint that would maybe yield the greatest return right off the bat?
Cutting expenses.
Okay, like what expenses do you think?
Like probably cutting down on inventory, having just enough to keep production moving forward, but not having a lot of cash tied up in inventory that's going to sit there for I don't know how long, a week or months or maybe even over a year. So I don't know if you could sell back the inventory or if you could just stop buying inventory for a while until it's more streamlined. Less inventory is hopefully more money in the bank, or more money somewhere.
What loan was tied to the inventory though? Was that the revolving?
I don't remember. That's a good point though.
Yeah, because I'm kind of thinking, because he is counting on some additional let me see if I can find it. Oh, well, that was just something that I thought about that might. Yeah, because the revolving loan would be based on 50% of the inventory value. And the other amount would be on the receivables. So
Okay.
one of the things that I thought about when they did mention inventory, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was kind of like there was a lot of scrap going on. The amount of the pounds of aluminum that they bought to produce pounds of product, there was a pretty high percentage of a pretty high percentage difference in that. And so I don't know if that's due to people making errors and it being scrapped, whether it's due to the old equipment that has a higher loss rate. But that was one of the things that I was looking at as far as the operational efficiencies. The other thing too is if you've got a workforce that's not happy, your productivity, their productivity there is probably pretty low.
Who would be the best person to talk to find that out? Instead of having to go through each employee.
Yeah, and I just don't know how competent the production manager. See, they have an operations manager and a productions manager.
Right.
I don't know if they see.
They could condense that to one person, right?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they really need both an operations manager and a production manager. It doesn't seem like that big of an operations to
Right.
have that. I would assume the operations manager looks like he makes a lot more than the production manager. So I would assume the operations manager is over pretty much everything, like shipping, receiving, and the production manager is just does the production. So yeah, I think I would probably sit down with those two and kind of figure out why there's two.
I wonder how much of an issue the union would be for Jim. I mean, it says he's had a little bit of experience working with unions in the past, but you know, I'm wondering if he's going to have to find an entire different workforce that's not unionized to even move forward. They might be at a gridlock, and it might be strikes coming. And I mean, I don't know a whole lot about unions and stuff, but it's they definitely exist to protect the employee and stuff like that. So maybe it means replacing workforce that's non-union, and you can maybe afford to pay them a little bit less. I don't know, but I think that's going to be probably not an issue on day one, but you know, in the next 6 months or so, like, you know, maybe production's going to go well and their forecasts are going to be met, and you can afford to keep on, you know, well-paid employees. But I guess just my not having experienced a ton with unions makes me a little hesitant to keep a union workforce. I don't even know if it's legal to fire them. Who knows?
Well, the thing that's weird is the case mentioned that a while back, the employees came up with a petition to decertify the union, basically just say we're no longer going to be in the union. But to me, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they they also voted to strike. I can see where some employees are kind of like, the union really isn't doing anything good for us, and I'm out of work for a few days to a few weeks every 3 years, and that really hurts my family budget. But on the same case, if there's a majority of the employees that don't want the union, I don't know how they could vote to strike. Whether there's maybe it's just the Teamsters can be pretty heavy-handed. Maybe the Teamsters is just kind of really intimidating the employees and making them go along with whatever the Teamster negotiator that goes in to negotiate the contract every 3 years. But there's some dynamic going on there. It almost sounds like the seller, the previous owner, just kind of ignored their request to get out of the union, which doesn't seem to make sense unless he just really didn't care that much about the business and wanted to keep collecting the paycheck from it.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Don't unions kind of cut into employees' salary or pay?
Yeah, you got to pay your union dues and everything.
That might be what it is, but it's causing them to not want it anymore. But I don't really know too much about how that process works, extracting the union from the company. I don't know if that's too expensive or not worth it. I'm not too familiar with unions.
See, he does have experience at GE. One of the things he said he learned was, it says, the experience at large companies also gave me a framework for dealing with a number of personnel issues, particularly with labor, union, and non-union situations. The surefire way to lose your job at GE was to become unionized in a non-union facility. You and your human relations manager immediately lost your jobs.
Right.
So, and he says he has experience in running, businesses in West Virginia where it's heavily unionized. So I think he does have some experience with that and an opportunity to use that, because basically I think GE's philosophy is the employees shouldn't feel like they need a union. So I think if he's open and transparent with the employees as far as profits, and maybe do some type of profit sharing thing with the employees, it sounds like there's already some support to getting rid of the union, and something like that would build a lot of trust with the employees and really get them on his side. And just the productivity that would go up with that, I think would be extremely beneficial for him going forward.
Yeah, I think that would be an important part too, and hopefully it would cut some costs, plus increase morale.
Yep. That'll put them off at a good start with those employees.
Okay, well, we're supposed to give the instructor a timestamp of when we actually kind of vote or decide on the plan or decision going forward. So I don't even see a time on here. Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, we started at what, like 5 or 6 after or so?
Yeah.
But maybe, yeah, well, we might just have to, in your email, Norman, if you want to include the timestamp with the link and say whatever summary starts at, 22 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
28 minutes. But yeah, do we? And should our summary just be answering the last question? Did Jim make the right acquisition?
Yeah. What do you
Yes.
think, Victor?
Did he make the right acquisition?
Yeah.
Like the choice to go with this company?
Yeah.
I think he definitely did. And I say that because of just based off of his history with choices and the way that he found this company. He didn't just stumble upon it. He did his research, and he knows what he's getting himself into. So, I mean, I feel like he's very confident. I feel like that's a big part of what he needs right now.
One of the questions that it asks in the Excel spreadsheet model is whether your recommendation would change if Jim had financed the purchase with equity from a private equity firm instead of debt from the previous owner and a bank. Have you guys looked at comparing that?
Not yet. I did part of step one. Well, not even step one. On the summary of the financial models and stuff. Um, but I hadn't looked at the other equity versus um, like the bank loan versus his financing from seller or anything like that.
The way I compare it, and I haven't run the numbers, but the benefits to doing it through equity from a private equity firm would be, number one, you wouldn't have all those weird contingencies with the owner. And number two, you probably could have gotten the business at a lower cost overall. The downside would be he would have to give up equity in the company. He would probably end up being maybe I honestly think he would be a whatever equity he ended up giving away. I think he would have ended up being a minority shareholder if he did that. And that's really, I don't think that really fits in with his goals. He could have, gotten a CEO job somewhere, but I think his goal was to, put in the sweat equity, put in his skills, and retain the equity. But again, he does that at a cost. Any trade-off. So I guess if I were him, based on his experience and based on his desires, I think the debt was the way to go, because that way he retains control and the equity in the company. So with kind of little risk to him, $100,000 really isn't that much to put in on a $2.2 million deal. So, I mean, if worst comes to worst, he loses the company, the guy gets it back at 99%, and he lost out his $100,000. So I honestly don't think his risk is that high in return for 100% of the equity of the company.
A good point. I feel like he really wants to maintain control. This is like his thing that he really wants to do. What were you going to say, Aaron? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that, yeah, I think he made the right decision. This is what he wanted. He kind of, found it in a strategic way, and, I'd be interested to see what he did and how the company did after he took control of it, and how much money he made from it. So I think his resume and his skill set is sufficient for what he has ahead of him. and he knows what he's getting into, um, and I think he can turn the company around and make it, a lot more profitable.
Yeah, my only.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I agree with Aaron too. For me, it's the best decision. He have a lot of experience, and maybe he up the company and made more profitable.
I would have liked to see him maybe do his first deal with somebody that's already done deals, just because I think his negotiation skills, I kind of question those. I don't know if he did as much due diligence as he should as far as the employees and the customers. So I would have liked to see him get experience negotiating, researching, negotiating, and and making those offers with somebody that had that experience. Because with his negotiation, I mean, he really had the seller there that the seller thought the deal was done, and that he had kind of lost out on it. I really think he could have gotten the company for the 1.7 million, because the seller was kind of like, oh man, I messed up, I should have taken the deal. But then he goes back and he actually negotiates a better deal.
Yeah.
So I just think his inexperience in negotiations and purchasing companies, I think that probably cost him in this deal.
Yeah, that's a good point, Norman.
All right. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to that?
No, I think that's good.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to running the numbers and kind of playing with that. I like when they provide at least some type of format that you can do, so you don't have to spend hours recreating it. But anyway, all right, I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording and save the link, and then I'll make another one.